Hello everyone! If you are currently preparing for the TOEFL and have no idea how to score high on the speaking section, please continue watching this video. We'll cover the structure of the speaking test, dive into the tips and tricks to score 26+, discuss the first and second questions in detail, learn about the top linking words to use in the TOEFL speaking, and then, equipped with all this knowledge, we'll take 2 complete speaking tests, where I'll show you how to answer questions and take notes effectively and without panicking. If you need someone to evaluate your speaking and writing, sign up for our TOEFL course and schedule a consultation with me. I'll tell you how you'll score in writing and speaking if you take the test tomorrow, and what you should do differently to get the score you want. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more tips and tricks about the test, and click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. Let's get started! One of the reasons why so many students struggle with the speaking section of the TOEFL is that, unlike the reading and listening sections, you cannot estimate your score for the section on your own. You need someone to listen to what you say, give you feedback, and tell you what you need to get a higher score. As part of the TOEFL prep course we created at LinguaTOEFL, I give consultations to students where I evaluate their speaking and writing responses. And what's interesting is that every single student I've had so far has repeated exactly the same mistakes, which usually results in them scoring 22 to 23 on the speaking section. And that's the typical score you're likely to get if you don't understand how the test works, regardless of your level of English. By the end of the consultation, however, most of these students score 26 to 27 or even higher, while their speaking level has obviously not changed during those 30 to 40 minutes. So, what do you need to know to score 30 out of 30 on the day of the test? Grab a notebook and let's get started. Tip number 1, study the speaking scoring rubrics. To get a high score, you need to know what the evaluators are looking for. So the best way to succeed in this section is to know exactly what to say and what not to say. For example, some test takers only think about their grammar and vocabulary and completely ignore what they're saying. Others, on the other hand, do their best to give 2 reasons in type 1 question and start stuttering or making mistakes in order to finish on time. There are also those who think that they should give a broad summary of the reading in questions type 2 and 3, or those who think they should not summarize the reading at all. In any case, all these people will never score higher than 23. Even if their speaking skills are very good. There are 3 main criteria you need to be aware of: delivery, language use, and topic development. You need to pass all 3, not just one. This is why I spend a lot of time both in the TOEFL prep course I created and in one-on-one sessions breaking down the speaking rubrics, so that my students have a checklist of things they absolutely need to get a high score. This brings us to tip number 2. Learn time management. The TOEFL speaking section is time sensitive, with only 4 questions to answer in 16 minutes. You have only 15 seconds to prepare for question 1 and 45 seconds to speak. And in those 45 seconds, you have to develop your opinion on a personal question and give reasons and examples for it. For example, you will be asked, do you agree or disagree with the statement that female and male university students should have separate residence halls? Now pause the video, give yourself 15 seconds to think about what to say, and try to give a detailed answer in 45 seconds, giving reasons and personal stories that would support your opinion. Not so easy, is it? So you need to practice managing your time effectively during your answers. Set a mental timer for each part of your answer, so you don't get caught off guard. For example, your introductory sentence in question type 1 should be no longer than 5 seconds. Otherwise, you won't have time to go into detail. In type 2 and 3 questions, you have to read the text, then listen to a conversation and a lecture, and then summarize what you learned in 60 seconds. Again, you need to know that you should spend no more than 15 seconds summarizing the reading. and at least 40 seconds giving details from the listening. You cannot effectively stay within the time limit if you don't use templates. Small structures for all 4 of your responses will help you score well and organize your ideas clearly. So tip number 3, start the same way for each question type. Simplify your approach by using the same introductory phrase for each question type. This will reduce the stress of getting started and help you start with confidence. This is why we need effective templates. For example, let's say your question type 1 looks like this. Your degree requires that you should choose a history course. Which of the following courses would you prefer? Art history, 20th century world history, science history. You only have 15 seconds to think about what you're gonna say, so in order to start confidently, you need to have an idea of what you might say. Of course, you can try to improvise, or you can use a set phrase. I can say, if I had to choose, I would definitely opt for an art history course. This would show the examiner that I can use conditionals. If I had to choose, I would. That I know idiomatic vocabulary, opt for. And that I can successfully paraphrase the task instead of just reading it. Also, I won't freak out about what to say, because whenever I see a question like this, I already know what my introduction will be. It will also allow me to spend more time on my reasons and develop them better. Another example. In question type 2, you will usually read a campus announcement and then listen to a conversation between 2 students discussing the announcement. You have 30 seconds to prepare, which is not a lot. So, if there is a change being discussed, you can always start your answer by saying, the reading passage announces a change on campus. And then go on to summarize the reading. Imagine, you're stressed about what to say next, but you can confidently start with a memorized sentence. This will help you sound confident in what you say, which is important on test day, and give you motivation to continue with the rest of your answer. As you can see, templates are critical. Does that mean you cannot score high without a template? No, you absolutely can. But templates make your life a lot easier, increase your score, and help you prepare for the exam faster. That is why we have included both speaking and writing templates in our TOEFL prep course, which are sure to improve your speaking and writing scores and make you feel prepared and confident on test day. If you are struggling to prepare for the TOEFL test, cannot find the right resources, keep running out of time on the reading section, or stay silent during the 45-second speaking response because your mind goes blank every time you see the timer, click on the link in the description. We'll fix all that and help you score 100 and higher and achieve your dreams. Tip number 4, pick the right time and place to study. Avoid studying when you're too tired, especially at night. You'll only waste time and not improve. Instead, find a time in the morning or afternoon when you can concentrate better. 10 minutes of focused practice is much more beneficial than an hour of idling around the questions. For example, what I usually do with my students during our consultations is take a list of type 1 questions and then practice them for about 10 minutes. At first, I ask them to come up with opening sentences for 15 to 20 questions in a row until the skill becomes automatic and they no longer think about it. You should also practice answering questions in a noisy environment, since this is what you might experience on test day. Of course, you can practice in a quiet room first, but then play some music in the background or turn on a podcast to distract yourself. On test day, you may hear other students talking, so it's better to be prepared for a noisy environment ahead of time. Tip number 5, use a timer. Practice under time pressure to get used to the test conditions. It may sound obvious, and it probably does, but you should embrace the timer as your ally. There are students who are afraid of time, so when they see the minutes ticking away, they panic and cannot say a word. You can try speaking without the timer first, and then slowly incorporate it into your practice routine. Look at the clock at least twice during your answer to stay on track. For example, in questions 2 and 3, if you see that you have 40 seconds left, you should move on to the listening summary. Tip number 6, expand your vocabulary. Don't stick to the same set of words. Include a variety of vocabulary to showcase your language skills. A diverse vocabulary not only impresses graders, but also adds depth and richness to your responses. This doesn't mean that you need to stuff your answers with low-frequency academic words that no one uses except in academic articles. Use thematic and idiomatic vocabulary. In our TOEFL course, we have compiled a list of such words on various topics, so you don't have to find them on your own. If you choose to prepare on your own, research topics such as science, study, work, entertainment, environment, and come up with 10 to 15 word lists for each topic. Tip number 7, practice, practice, practice. You know what they say, practice makes perfect. Record yourself responding to various TOEFL prompts. Play them back, identify areas for improvement, and fine-tune your responses. The more you practice, the more comfortable and fluent you'll become. And hey, it's a great way to track your progress. I like to give my students raw scores for each answer they give, because it motivates them to keep going. Start with question type 1, then move on to question type 2, and so on. You can also do complete speaking sections on YouTube to simulate the test conditions. Tip number 8, get professional support. Consider seeking guidance from experienced teachers. Whether it's a TOEFL tutor or an English teacher, having someone to guide your studies can be immensely beneficial. You can take our Get 100 Plus on TOEFL course to improve your skills, or use any other professional support out there. The important thing is that you get feedback a little earlier than a few days before the test. If you schedule a consultation the day before the TOEFL test, you will not have time to implement the skills and feedback that you will receive. So allow at least a few days between your consultation and the test. If you want to know how to tackle the first question of the TOEFL speaking section and learn strategies to get a high score without stressing out, you've come to the right place. So let's dive into the first question of the TOEFL speaking section and try to answer it. Do you agree or disagree that it's important for young people to learn some domestic skills, like cooking, sewing, and taking care of children? 15 seconds to prepare. I agree that learning to do chores is key for young adults. First, it'll help you avoid lots of struggles in your adult life. I have many friends who started living on their own and had no idea how to cook. And they ended up eating out all the time, which wasn't healthy or cost-effective. Some of them would live mostly on fast food, while others chose cafes and restaurants. So either their health or their budget suffered. Besides, as an adult, you have so much more to think about rather than how to load the dishwasher or what detergent to use for your laundry. So if you master all these skills while you're still relatively free of adult responsibilities, you'll thank yourself later. All right, we've answered the question. Now it's time for step 2. Let's quickly discuss the question itself. TOEFL speaking question 1 is often called the independent TOEFL speaking question, or the personal choice question. As you just saw, this question asks you to give your opinion on a given topic. There are 3 main types of independent speaking question. Most often, it asks you to agree or disagree with a given statement, like the question we just did. You can also see questions like this. Which one do you prefer? To buy the newly released e-product as soon as possible, or to wait for a while and then decide whether you want to buy it or not. Here they ask you to pick between 2 options. Or like this. Do you think it's important for parents to teach their kids to learn how to manage money? Use reasons and specific examples to support your opinion. Here, you need to talk about a hypothetical situation. In any case, your answer will be pretty much the same. You don't need to change the structure. Time for step 3, how your response is scored. You get a raw score for each question of the TOEFL speaking section, on a scale from 0 to 4, with 4 being the highest score. The speaking rubrics involve 3 parts: delivery, language use, and topic development. According to the EDS, to get a high score for delivery, 1. You should speak at a natural pace. 2. Your speech should be clear. 3. Your pronunciation and intonation should be easily understood. For language use, you should 1. Use grammar and vocabulary automatically and effectively. 2. Avoid too many mistakes that make your speech difficult to understand. Finally, topic development is all about 1. Giving a relevant response to the topic. 2. Providing enough details. 3. Connecting your ideas well. Now, let's move on to step 4. Useful tips. Number 1. Use templates. Since your response time is limited, it is very helpful to have a small structure to guide you through your answer. You can use the templates you find online, or take our TOEFL prep course and use the templates we provide. You can find the link to it down below. 2. Practice making an opening statement quickly. It's hard to believe, but many students struggle because they can't get their opening statement out in the first 5 seconds, wasting time they could have spent providing details. To practice, take a list of 20 to 40 independent speaking questions and try to make an opening statement for each of them very quickly. This will help you feel more confident. Speak naturally. Many students lose points because they stuff their answers with overly complex words, too many idioms, or advanced vocabulary. Instead, imagine you are speaking to a friend. Would you tell him or her, "My stance regarding this issue is that adolescents should educate themselves on the process of doing household chores"? Not really. So, focus on what you say, rather than how you say it. The only thing is, avoid repeating the same word too many times in your answer. 4. Don't spend too much time on your notes. You'll only have 15 seconds to prepare, so don't waste this time on writing down many things. If you want, write 1 or 2 reasons you'll give, not to forget them, but spend the remaining time thinking about what you'll say. 5. Don't be too formal in your answers. I see many students who say first and foremost, second of all, in conclusion. You don't need that. Your answer should be natural sounding. 6. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can get a perfect score even if you make several mistakes. The important thing is that they shouldn't interfere with the meaning. For example, if you say to be good in something instead of to be good at something, the listener will still be able to understand. Of course, if you have too many mistakes, it will affect your score. But don't worry too much if you make 2 to 4 minor slips. I have so many students who think only about grammar, and once they make a mistake, they are like, "Oh no, I failed. I cannot continue speaking." And they start stumbling and stuttering and don't finish their answer. Believe me, this is much worse for your overall score. Also, don't be afraid of making some pauses. Actually, it's impossible to speak without making pauses. The important thing is that these pauses have to be content related, not vocabulary or grammar related. So, imagine you say a sentence like this: "Well, the thing I like the most is my phone." That's okay. However, if you say something like this: "Well, the thing I like most is my phone," that's not okay, because the examiner will see that you either do not remember some word or you cannot use grammar freely. The next tip: don't give 3 reasons for your opinion. This way, you won't have time to expand your ideas. So, give 2 reasons. This will give you much more time to explain why you think this way. If you have problems coming up with 2 reasons, just give 1, but make sure to make a detailed example. A lot of students try giving 3 reasons, and because of that, they don't have enough time to expand on them, and will lose points for topic development. Alright, as you can see, the independent speaking question is not as intimidating as it first seems. My final advice for those who want to improve is: first, stop being afraid. This is the game changer. If you are all tense and stressed out, you'll likely end up failing this question. Relax and remember that even if you say something on a completely different topic but speak well, you'll still get points for delivery, language use, and even part of the topic development. 2. Practice speaking consistently for 45 seconds or more, and don't allow yourself to stop in the middle. When we practice together, most of my students go like this. To me, it's a no-brainer that it's better to study online. No, I can't do it. I don't know what to say. If you don't know what to say something. For example, honestly, I have no idea whether it's better to study online or in a traditional classroom setting. I've never even thought about it, as this is completely irrelevant for me. Thinking about it now, my guess would be that probably it's way better to study online. And so on. Continue speaking until the 45 seconds are off. This will teach you how to keep talking, no matter what, which is going to help a lot when you take the test. I'm going to show you how to answer the second question of the TOEFL speaking section and get the high score you want. We'll answer the question together, discuss its format and scoring criteria, and discover all the tips and tricks you need to know to score 30 out of 30 on the day of the test. Let's get started. Step number 1. Let's answer the question and discover its structure. We'll use the original question from the EDS free practice test. I'll attach the link to it in the description below, just in case you want to practice on your own later. This question is called Campus Announcement, as it tests how well you can communicate on campus. Now, listen carefully to the instructions.
Read the article from a university newspaper. You will have 50 seconds to read the article. Begin reading now.
Let's pause for a second. As you can see, the first part of the task is to read a text about a campus-related topic. While you read, you should write down 2 things. 1. The main idea of the passage. Ask yourself, what is this text mainly about? You'll usually find this information in the heading and in the first couple of sentences. In this text, the university will prohibit bicycles on campus. So, simply write down, ban bicycles on campus. An important thing to remember. You cannot just take the piece of the text and say it exactly the same way. In your response, you should paraphrase. You can do that immediately when you take notes, or later when you have time to prepare. 2. Watch out for the 2 sub-ideas. It could be reasons for a change or a new policy, or some extra information. How to spot them? Look for transitions. Do you see the word furthermore? That's the one. You'll usually see transitions like in addition, besides, moreover, the second reason is that, and so on, to indicate the beginning of the second sub-idea. This means that the first sub-idea is given before this transition. Here is an example of my notes for the passage. Ban bicycles on campus. 1. Prevent collisions. 2. S can use free buses. S stands for students. Now let's listen to a conversation about that topic. Remember, you only hear it once, so don't forget to take notes.
Now listen to a conversation between 2 students.
Hey, Sue, did you see this article?
Yeah, I did. I don't think that's a very good idea.
Really? You don't think it's a safety hazard, like they said?
No, at least not during the day. I'm pretty sure both of those accidents happened at night, when it's harder to see cyclists. They didn't say that in the article.
Oh, that does make a difference.
Sure it does. Maybe at night, with low visibility, there's a safety hazard. But I don't think there's any danger in the daytime, which is when most people need to move around and get to classes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Besides, it's such a big campus. If they do this, it's going to be really hard to get around.
Well, we can always take the bus, I guess.
But the buses only run once an hour.
That's true. They're not very convenient.
No, not at all. If people have to take the bus, we'll end up sitting around waiting for the next one all the time, and we're all too busy to waste our time doing that.
As you see, the conversation is between 2 students, and one of them gives 2 reasons for their opinion. In some tasks, the student agrees with the announcement. In some, the student disagrees. My notes for this question look like this. Disagrees. 1. accidents happened at night, difficult to see, low visibility, day, no danger. Most S, commute during the day. 2, big campus, hard to get around, buses run once an hour. S, will waste time waiting. Too busy. S stands for students. You can write a bit more or a bit less, depending on your speed of writing. The important thing is that you don't get distracted from listening. Now, you'll have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. After the signal, you can pause the video and try answering on your own. Then continue the video and listen to my response. According to the announcement, the university is going to ban the use of bicycles on campus, as it'll help prevent collisions between pedestrians and cyclists, and because students will be able to use free campus buses instead. The speaker disagrees with this idea and provides 2 reasons in support. First, she says that the accidents described in the article occurred at night, when the visibility is poor and it's difficult to see cyclists. However, most students commute during the day, when this problem doesn't exist, and as a result, there is no safety threat. Second, she mentions that the campus is a large area, so if students aren't allowed to use bicycles, getting around will be problematic. On top of that, the buses only go once an hour, so even if the bus service is introduced, it won't be as effective as riding a bike, because students will waste a lot of time waiting for the next bus, and they're too busy for that. These are the reasons why the woman is against the announcement. That's it! You just need to summarize the information from both the reading and the listening. You don't need to give your opinion. If you think you'll never master the speaking section, and this question in particular, join our intensive TOEFL course and arm yourself with all the tools you need to succeed. We'll walk you through each section of the test, provide you with effective templates for the speaking and writing sections, teach you how to speak without too much stress, and much more. With expert guidance and customized study materials, you can get a score of 100 or higher, from mastering the test structure to delving into detailed section techniques. We've got you covered. Let's take this journey together and achieve your TOEFL goals. Click the link below to enroll now and take the first step toward your dream score. Now, step number 2. How your response is scored. Just as with the first question of the TOEFL speaking section, you can get a raw score for this one on a scale from 0 to 4, with 4 being the highest score. Your answer will be assessed by a human rater and by an automated computer software called the speech rater. The human rater will score your delivery, language use, and topic development. The speech rater has its own criteria. However, in general, to get a high score, you should 1. Speak at a natural pace. You don't have to rush, but don't slow down too much either, because the speech rater will notice. 2. Speak clearly, to make sure everyone understands what you are saying. 3. Avoid pausing too much. This is mostly for the speech rater. 4. Avoid too many grammar and vocabulary mistakes, especially those that make your speech difficult to understand. 5. Use complex and compound sentences. It doesn't mean that your speech should be overly complicated. Just avoid using only simple sentences. 6. Quickly summarize the reading. 7. Provide many details from the listening. 8. Connect your ideas well by using transitions like besides, as a result, however, this is why, and so on. With that in mind, let's move on to step 3. Tips and tricks. 1. Don't spend more than 15 seconds on the reading summary. As you can see, I summarized the reading passage in 1 sentence. You can also summarize the reading in 2 sentences, but no more than that. Many students start giving lots of details about the reading and, as a result, run out of time when they start talking about the conversation. 2. If your level is not very good, start each answer the same way. You can say, The reading passage announces a change on campus, or the reading passage announces a new policy. Starting the same way each time gives you a sense of control and allows you to stay calm while answering. In our TOEFL course, we provide you with templates for the speaking section that'll help you get a high score. 3. Take notes. I recommend writing down the main ideas and the 2 sub-ideas, just like I did. This will help you avoid pausing, especially in the first half of your answer, which will increase your score from the speech rater. 4. Provide lots of details from the conversation. The conversation is more important than the reading, as you don't see the text in front of you. So the more details you provide, the higher your score will be. If you're a slow speaker, you can just include the main idea of the reading and focus on the listening summary. 5. Use transitions. This question tests your ability to understand information and then present it in a clear and effective way. This is why using transitions such as besides, as a result, however, this is why, on top of that, from time to time will allow you to score higher. 6. Don't give a conclusion unless you run out of time. If you're a fast speaker like me, you can include a conclusion at the end of your answer instead of staying silent. However, if you don't have time for a conclusion, don't worry. It's not necessary at all. In fact, you can easily get a 4 out of 4 if you include all the relevant information, speak fluently, and without mistakes. No conclusion is necessary. 7. Study synonyms and campus vocabulary. As you can see, you should be able to paraphrase fast and speak fluently on campus-related topics. So, if you have little experience with campus-related vocabulary, I suggest checking it out. You can find lots of campus vocabulary on vocabulary.com. We're going to see how using linking words can make a difference in the TOEFL speaking section, and discuss 16 of the most important linking words you can use. Stick around as we dive into this important skill to help you achieve your dream score. Let's get started. The first question is, what are linking words? Linking words are words or phrases that act as bridges between sentences or paragraphs. For example, and, but, so, on top of that, even if, unless, and so on. They help connect ideas smoothly and make your writing or speaking easier to understand. Adding them to your answers makes them sound less robotic. In fact, effective use of linking words improves the coherence and fluidity of the answer, making it sound more natural and easier to understand. As we just discussed, a clear and natural answer is the key to a high score. There are 3 typical mistakes TOEFL students make with linking words, and I want you to discover them for yourself. Take a look at this question. It's a typical one you might get in the first part of the TOEFL speaking section. You have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? If you want to succeed in business, being outgoing and friendly is very important. Now listen to my first answer and tell me what you think. I agree with the statement that being outgoing and friendly is important for success in business. It helps in building rapport with clients, colleagues, and customers. This can lead to better negotiations and opportunities. My boss is a very sociable person. He makes business connections easily. This has allowed him to expand his business and find many business partners. Being outgoing and friendly creates a positive work environment and makes networking easier. We always have a friendly environment at work. We know we can trust each other. As you can see, the first mistake is to avoid connecting words altogether. Not only does it make your answer sound robotic and strained, but it also does not allow you to elaborate on your ideas. Use complex and compound sentences and connect your ideas logically. You'd be surprised, but in my one-on-one sessions, I often see advanced students who are so stressed about staying on time that they forget even the most basic linking words, such as also, but, and so. Answer 2. In my opinion, I strongly agree with the statement that being outgoing and friendly is crucial for success in business, as effective communication and relationship building are fundamental pillars in the realm of business. First and foremost, being outgoing and friendly promotes positive interactions with clients, customers, and colleagues. Furthermore, a friendly disposition contributes to a conducive work environment. In addition, such individuals are adept at diffusing tensions and resolving conflicts amicably, thus fostering a harmonious workplace culture. However, it is important to recognize that success in business requires a multifaceted approach. I won't go any further because I think you can see my second point. Mistake number 2, using formal linking words. The thing is, if you go online and search for linking word lists, you will see both formal and informal linking words mixed together. This is why many students use words like moreover, nevertheless, and to exemplify in their answers, thinking it will increase their score. But it won't. Native speakers don't converse this way. So save these formal alternatives for the writing section and focus instead on the linking words used in spoken English. The same answer also sheds light on the third mistake: using linking words incorrectly. Some students try to use as many of them as possible. They literally start every single sentence with a linking word. Others simply use them incorrectly. Either way, the result is often that their answers sound forced and unnatural. And remember, sounding natural is the most important thing to focus on. So, make sure you sprinkle your answers with 2 to 3 informal linking words instead of stuffing them with tons of formal ones. This will not only help you sound natural in the first question of the speaking section, but it will also help you express your ideas well on the second, third, and fourth tasks of the test. For example, by starting your sentences with while, even if, unless, even though, you can create complex sentences that will allow you to convey the same message more quickly and give you enough time to include many details from the recording. Now that we're getting to the linking words themselves, your mini assignment is to watch the lesson carefully and write down the ones you find most useful. You don't have to learn and use them all. Just pick 3 to 5 linking words you feel comfortable using in your answers. Then, answer this question using the linking words you learned. Feel free to share your responses in the comments below. And remember that simply adding linking words to your answers isn't enough to get a high score. There are a number of other important factors to consider. If you're about to take the test and want to find out what you're doing wrong and how you can score higher, enroll in our TOEFL prep course and have your speaking and writing responses evaluated. The promo code link is below. Let's begin. The first 5 linking words that you definitely know are first, second, also, but, and so. I don't need to explain how to use them, but I want to emphasize that even though they're very basic, I still highly recommend using them in your answers. For example, you can say, I agree that being outgoing and friendly is the key to success in business. First, when you're friendly, it's easier to connect with people like clients and colleagues, which helps build trust and can lead to more opportunities. Successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs are often known for their exceptional ability to communicate and build relationships. Also, a friendly atmosphere at work promotes teamwork and makes everyone happier. Getting back to the Steve Jobs example, his charismatic charm allowed him to connect with people on a personal level, which helped him inspire and motivate his team by fostering a sense of loyalty and commitment among employees. So yes, being outgoing and friendly is a big deal in business. As you can see, using even such basic transitions as first, also, and so can help you build an effective response. Let's look at some more linking words. For example, to illustrate. To give examples, use for example or to illustrate. I could have said, for example, successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs are often known for their exceptional ability to communicate and build relationships. You can also just use the linking words like or such as I did in my example. Successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, or successful entrepreneurs such as Steve Jobs. The next few linking words are unless, even if, while, and even though. I find them especially useful in the integrated speaking section. Imagine you have to summarize a lecture in 60 seconds. You should include a lot of details. But as you go, you feel like you're running out of time. A great solution is to introduce complex, compound and complex compound sentences. This will help you say the same thing in a much shorter way. Let's look at a few examples, taken from answers to integrated speaking questions. Even though children may not know how to behave at first, they soon learn that bad behavior is punished and good behavior is rewarded. Number 2. Also, the buses only run once an hour, which means that even if the bus service is introduced, it won't be as effective as riding a bicycle because students will end up wasting too much time waiting for the next bus. Number 3. So, unless a car works the way it's supposed to and lasts a long time without breaking down, it's considered unreliable. Number 4. While the health center does need more doctors, it's tiny and there is simply not enough space to accommodate them. If you want to explain the reason or cause for something, you can use "that's why" and "as a result." For example, I've been making an effort to prioritize sleep. That's why I feel more refreshed and focused during the day. Or, as a result, I struggled to keep up with my coursework and ended up turning in many assignments at the last minute. Finally, to add another point, you can simply use "also" or use "on top of that." I already have a lot on my plate with work, school, and family responsibilities to take care of. On top of that, I have to deal with stress of planning my sister's wedding, which is adding even more pressure. We're going to break down the entire speaking section of the TOEFL test so that you can see for yourself all the do's and don'ts. We'll be using the ETS free sample test, which you can find in the description below. As always, I recommend that you pause the video after each question and try to answer the questions on your own before listening to my responses. This way, you will not only learn new information, but you will really practice and get one step closer to your dream score. If your TOEFL test is coming up and you want to get to your target score as quickly as possible, click on this link to get access to all the materials and resources you need. And because you're watching this video, we're giving you a discount promo code. So let's pretend that today is the day of your test and get started. As with all TOEFL sections, you will first see the instructions. Then, the first task. You will see a question and you will have 45 seconds to answer it. The important thing is that you only have 15 seconds to prepare. So don't panic and use this time to your advantage. Let's give it a try.
State whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. Then explain your reasons, using specific details in your explanation. Learning through online courses is more effective than learning in the traditional classroom setting.
I absolutely agree that online classes are much more beneficial for learning. First of all, studying online saves a lot of time on your daily commute. I remember when my friend used to take a TOEFL prep course in downtown LA, he had to waste a couple of hours a day getting there and back. However, if he had prepared for the test online, he would have been able to invest all that time in taking practice tests and studying on his own, which would have allowed him to get the score he needed much faster. Second, distance learning also allows you to take courses from anywhere in the world, regardless of your location. You can earn a certificate or even a degree from top American universities while living in Australia, for example, which definitely opens up new opportunities. This task is usually the hardest for my students for a couple of reasons. First, they start to panic during the prep time and can't say anything during the answer time. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if this is your problem. Second, some students make the first introductory statement too long. For example, they might say something like, "I absolutely agree that learning through online classes is much more beneficial than learning in the traditional classroom setting. And there are a couple of reasons why I have this opinion." This makes them waste a lot of time, and they can't elaborate on their reasons and examples. Some don't use transitions, such as "on top of that," "however," "as a result." Others pause too much and say something like, "I agree that online courses are much more beneficial for 2 reasons." And most struggle to come up with relevant reasons and examples. As you can see, there is a lot going on in those 45 seconds, which is why I usually devote most of my time during our consultations to this type of question. Now, let's move on to the second part of the speaking section. The next 3 questions are called integrated speaking questions because you no longer have to think about what to say. You must read, listen, and then summarize what you read and heard. In question 2, you'll read a text about the change on campus and then listen to 2 students discussing this change. Your task is to write down the main idea of the reading, what this change is about, and then listen carefully to one of the speakers in the conversation. This person will express their opinion about the change and give 2 reasons for this opinion. For example, I support this change because reason 1 and reason 2. Now, let's get down to business.
Read the article from a university newspaper. You will have 50 seconds to read the article. Begin reading now. Now listen to a conversation between 2 students.
Hey, Sue, did you see this article?
Yeah, I did. I don't think that's a very good idea.
Really? You don't think it's a safety hazard, like they said?
No, at least not during the day. I'm pretty sure both of those accidents happened at night when it's harder to see cyclists. They didn't say that in the article.
Oh, that does make a difference.
Sure it does. Maybe at night with low visibility there's a safety hazard. But I don't think there's any danger in the daytime, which is when most people need to move around and get to classes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Besides, it's such a big campus. If they do this, it's going to be really hard to get around.
Well, we can always take the bus, I guess.
But the buses only run once an hour.
That's true. They're not very convenient.
No, not at all. If people have to take the bus, we'll end up sitting around waiting for the next one all the time, and we're all too busy to waste our time doing that.
The woman expresses her opinion of the proposed policy change. State her opinion and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion.
In the announcement, the university shares its plans to soon ban the use of bicycles on campus, since they are a safety risk and because the free campus bus service is an alternative way to get around. The speaker disagrees with this policy. First, she points out that the accidents described in the article took place at night, when visibility is poor, and it's not easy to see cyclists. However, most students ride their bikes during the day, when this problem does not exist, so there is no safety threat. Second, she mentions that the campus area is large, and if students cannot use bicycles, commuting between campus buildings will be problematic. Also, the buses only run once an hour, which means that even if the bus service is introduced, it won't be as effective as riding a bicycle, because students will end up wasting too much time waiting for the next bus, and everyone is too busy for that. These are the reasons why the woman disagrees with the announcement. So, as you can see, you want to give a brief summary of the reading, and then spend most of your time on the listening summary. A quick tip from me is to use the 20-40 rule. Spend 20 seconds on the reading summary and transition, and then 40 seconds on the conversation summary. The biggest challenges with this type of question are not keeping to the time limit, saying too little about the listening summary, talking too much about the reading, making too many grammar and vocabulary mistakes that make your answer unclear, and again, pausing too much. Question 3. I call this question general to specific. Why is that? Because in this question, you should first read a general text on an academic topic, and then listen to a more specific lecture on the same topic. The lecture will usually explain the concept from the reading using examples, experiments, or the professor's experience. Then, as in question 2, you should summarize what you have heard and read. Let's look at this question.
Now read the passage from a psychology textbook. You have 45 seconds to read the passage. Begin reading now. Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic in a psychology class.
This happens all the time with kids in schools. Say there's a little boy or girl who's just starting school. Well, they're not really used to the rules about proper behavior for a classroom. So at the beginning they might, interrupt the teacher, walk around the classroom when they're supposed to be sitting down. Just misbehaving in general. Okay, but what happens? Well, the teacher gets angry with them when they act this way. They might get punished. They have to sit at their desks when everyone else is allowed to go outside and play. And they certainly don't like that. Soon, they'll learn that this kind of behavior gets them in trouble. They'll also learn that when they raise their hand to talk to the teacher and sit quietly and pay attention during class, they're rewarded. The teacher tells them she's proud of them and maybe puts little happy face stickers on their homework. Now that their behavior gets a good reaction from the teacher, the kids learn to always act this way in class and not behave the way they used to.
Using the example from the lecture, explain what behavior modification is and how it works.
The reading passage is about behavior modification, which is when we change the way we behave after learning about the consequences of our actions. The professor delves deeper into the subject by using the example of children just starting school. He says that at first, kids don't know how to behave in class and may interrupt the teacher, walk around the classroom, or misbehave in some other way. However, after seeing the teacher get angry with them and maybe even punish them for this sort of behavior, like making them sit at their desks while other children play outside, the little ones realize that bad behavior will result in negative consequences for them. On the contrary, when they behave well, such as raising their hands to speak or sitting quietly and paying attention in class, children are rewarded with praise from the teacher or happy face stickers on their homework, which motivates them to behave that way in class and avoid bad behavior. Well, how was that? As you can see, this question can be challenging for people who have trouble summarizing things quickly and effectively. A typical situation I see with my students is that a person starts talking and either does not include some relevant details or tries to say too much and runs out of time. A little tip from me: use complex and compound sentences. They always help to get the same message across, but in a much shorter and more concise way. If you feel this is a bit too challenging for you, don't worry. These questions may seem difficult at first, but with a little practice, you'll be able to crack them like nuts. If you want to learn the special formula for summarizing the lecture in a fast and effective way, join our TOEFL course. We'll practice each question of the speaking section separately, and make sure you ace the speaking section. Last but not least, question 4. For this question, you only have 20 seconds to prepare, and the same 60 seconds to speak as in question 3. This is because you don't have to read the text. You just listen to a lecture. It usually starts with the professor talking about some topic or issue, and then you will hear 2 examples that will illustrate this concept. For example, 2 types of mammals, or 2 marketing strategies. So your job is just to listen carefully, take notes, and then summarize. Let's give it a shot.
Listen to part of a lecture in a business class.
If a consumer has to choose between 2 products, what determines the choice? Assume that someone, a purchaser, is choosing between 2 products that cost the same, okay? If people have a choice between 2 identically priced products, which one will they choose? They choose the one they think is of higher quality, of course. But what does it mean for a product to be a high-quality product? Well, business analysts usually speak of 2 major factors of quality. One factor is reliability, and the other is what we call features. So reliability. What's reliability? Well, a product is reliable if it works the way we expect it to work, if it can go a reasonable amount of time without needing repairs. If a product, a car for example, doesn't work the way it should and needs repairs too soon, we say it's unreliable. So product reliability means basically the absence of defects or problems that you weren't expecting. It used to be that when people thought about product quality, they thought mainly about reliability. Today, it's different. People do still care about reliability, don't get me wrong. It's just that manufacturing standards are now so high that, we'll take cars, for example, today. Today's cars are very reliable. So reliability is important, but it's not going to be the deciding factor. So if reliability isn't the deciding factor anymore, what is? Features. All those extras, the things a product has that aren't really necessary, but that make it easier to use or that make it cool. For example, new cars today are loaded with features like electric windows, sunroofs, air conditioning, stereos, and so forth. When people are comparing products today, they look at features because reliability is pretty much equal across the board. And that's why manufacturers include so many features in their products.
Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the two major factors of product quality and how their role in consumer decision-making has changed.
The lecture is about two major factors of quality, aspects that help customers choose between two similar products. The first factor is reliability, which is when the product works as we expect and lasts long enough without needing to be repaired. She gives an example of cars, saying that when you buy a new car, you want it to work the way it should and last a long time without breaking down. Otherwise, it's unreliable. Simply put, a reliable product doesn't have defects and works the way we expect it to. The second and deciding factor is features. Features are extra additions that aren't necessary but make the product easier to use or just cool. To illustrate, new cars come with many extra features, such as sunroofs, air conditioners, stereos, electric windows, and so on. For this reason, consumers look at features when deciding which product to buy. And so, manufacturers try to include as many features as possible in their products. The key to answering this question is to include details from the lecture. A little tip from me. If you hear a word that you recognize, but you aren't sure if you'll remember it when you speak, write it down. That way, you have a little list of words to guide you through your answer and help you speak fluently. Also, don't waste too much time in the beginning. Just introduce the general topic and talk about the two things in turn. We'll do an entire TOEFL speaking section together. By the end of this video, I hope you will understand that the TOEFL speaking test is not as scary as it seems, and you will be equipped with all the necessary tools and knowledge to tackle it effectively. Let's get started! The test we'll be taking is from the ETS website. You can find the link below. Try answering the questions yourself first, and then continue watching to hear my answers. Question 1. Independent speaking.
You will now give your opinion about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. Some people enjoy taking risks and trying new things. Others are not adventurous, they are cautious and prefer to avoid danger. Which behavior do you think is better? Explain why.
I believe people should take risks and try new things because it allows them to constantly grow and improve their lives. I remember back in college, I always said yes to all kinds of activities and events. For example, I would join different clubs and sports teams even though I had no prior experience, like playing soccer, fencing, and participating in theater productions. Nothing too risky, of course, but while I was a little nervous at first, it helped me discover new passions and improve my teamwork and communication skills. It also allowed me to build a diverse network of friends from all walks of life, many of whom I still keep in touch with today. This question is usually the hardest for most students because you should speak non-stop for 45 seconds and also think about what to say at the same time. I often see how students struggle with it during the consultations I give for our TOEFL prep course and in my one-on-one sessions. The truth is, it's not as hard as it seems. You should do a certain list of things that will help you answer this question effectively. And don't panic. In fact, this is my favorite part to explain during my consultations because I love to see people who have been struggling with their answers finally start to produce solid responses without pauses, which completely changes their scores. So first, drill the introductory sentence. That's the first sentence in your response, and you should be able to produce it like this for every question you come across. Then, give one reason for your opinion. You can give two if you're a fast speaker, but often having one clear reason is more than enough. Besides, this way you can elaborate on your point and provide more details. Which brings us to part 3, drill examples. In fact, every example you give in the independent question is almost the same. You start by creating context. For example, I remember when I was a kid, I used to ... Then you add details. I'd come back from home and I'd do my homework and then ... And finally, you show some results. Why this example is relevant. For example, this allowed me to ace my exams and ... So for this question, you should simply choose one of the two options. State your choice at the beginning and then give one reason why you think so, and finish with a detailed example. By the way, if you want to know the speaking and writing templates that make up half of your answers and allow you to boost your score from 22-23 to 25-27, click on the link below. By using these templates, you'll feel confident and relaxed on test day and know exactly what to say for each type of question. And because you're watching this video, there is a special promo code you can use. Now, question 2, campus announcement.
The university is making a change in the courses it will offer. First, read the article from the university newspaper about the change. Next, listen to a conversation on the same topic. You will then be asked a question about what you have read and heard. Now listen to two students discussing the article.
Everything all right?
Yeah, I'm just upset about that article I showed you this morning.
Why? What's the big deal?
Well, as an art major, I think it's a big loss for the department. The university's got it all wrong.
What do you mean?
Well, the low enrollment isn't because art majors don't want to take these classes. Problem is, who has time to take them when there are so many other requirements?
I don't understand.
You see, the classes they're eliminating are all optional. The required courses are mostly painting and drawing, and they take up all our time. What we really need are different requirements, then art majors could take a better variety of classes, all the things we're interested in.
That makes sense. But, the thing about the professor.
Well, that's true. But still, they're being drastic. If money's the problem, they could hire a part-time professor. Or, most of the professors in the department have secondary fields.
Really?
Yeah. At least a few painting teachers are also great sculptors. I'm sure one of them could teach a class.
The woman expresses her opinion of the university's plan. State her opinion and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion.
According to the announcement, the university's decision to eliminate the sculpture program is based on a lack of student interest, resulting in low enrollment, and the retirement of the only sculpture professor, which is a problem because of the department's limited budget. However, the speaker disagrees with this decision, since she believes it's a huge loss for the department. First, she says that the sculpture classes are all electives, and students are already overwhelmed with core courses like painting and drawing, so it's not like they are not interested in taking these classes. They simply don't have time. She also believes that changing the course requirements would allow art majors to take a wider range of classes. Secondly, the student says that if money is a problem, the university could hire a part-time professor or ask faculty who have secondary fields in sculpture to step in. She adds that some painting teachers are also great sculptors. This would solve the budget problem while keeping the program alive. For this question and all the other integrated speaking questions, think about your notes. In fact, there are 3 things you should be able to do to succeed in these tasks. 1. Understand the reading and listening material well. 2. Take and organize notes effectively. And 3, make sure you present the information logically. If you can do this, you'll definitely score at least a 3.5 out of 4 on all these questions. Note that you should paraphrase the information from the reading a bit, and include lots of details from the listening. The listening part is more important, so try to spend at least 30 to 40 seconds talking about it. Moving on. Question 3. General to specific.
Read a passage from a psychology textbook. Then, listen to the lecture that follows. Listen to part of a talk in a psychology class.
I think this will help you get a picture of what your textbook is describing. I had a friend who taught in the physics department, Professor Jones. He retired last year. Anyway, I remember, this was a few years ago, I remember passing by a classroom early one morning just as he was leaving, and he looked terrible. His clothes were all rumpled, and he looked like he hadn't slept all night. And I asked if he was okay. I was surprised when he said that he never felt better, that he was totally happy. He had spent the entire night in the classroom working on a mathematics puzzle. He didn't stop to eat dinner, he didn't stop to sleep, or even rest. He was that involved in solving the puzzle. And it didn't even have anything to do with his teaching or research. He had just come across this puzzle accidentally, I think in a mathematics journal, and it just really interested him. So he worked furiously all night and covered the blackboards in the classroom with equations and numbers, and never realized that time was passing by.
Explain flow and how the example used by the professor illustrates the concept.
The reading is about flow, which is when you are so immersed in an activity that challenges your physical and mental abilities that you lose track of time and feel deeply satisfied with what you are doing. The professor delves deeper into the subject by giving an example of his friend, Professor Jones, who used to teach in the physics department. He says that his friend once stayed up all night working on a math puzzle that he had stumbled upon and which had no connection to his research or classes. He adds that Jones was so excited to solve it that he worked hard all night, writing numbers and equations on the blackboards in the classroom, without stopping for dinner, sleep, or rest, completely forgetting the time. However, when the professor saw him the next morning, looking disheveled and terrible, his friend Jones said that he had never felt so happy. How was that? For this question, try to avoid pausing too much and using too many and so on. Does that mean you should talk like a robot? Not really. You can pause, but not too much. If you pause every 1 or 2 words, it will lower your delivery score. Also, don't repeat the same words too often. You don't want to say influence 3 to 5 times in your answer. Instead, think about how you can paraphrase or change the structure of your sentences. When practicing, it's always good to record yourself speaking, or even script your answers for the first few attempts to see if you have favorite filler words or words you keep repeating. But I think the main point here is to be able to give a lot of information in a short amount of time. So you'll need complex and compound sentences. Add sentences with which, when, if, so, while, and so on. This will make your life a lot easier. Question 4. Academic lecture.
You will listen to part of a lecture. You will then be asked a question about what you heard. Listen to part of a lecture in a biology course.
Human beings aren't the only animals that use tools. It's generally recognized that other animals use tools as well, use them naturally in the wild, without any human instruction. But when can we say that an object is a tool? Well, it depends on your definition of a tool. And in fact, there are 2 competing definitions, a narrow definition and a broad one. The narrow definition says that a tool is an object that's used to perform a specific task, but not just any object. To be a tool according to the narrow definition, the object's gotta be purposefully changed or shaped by the animal, or human, so that it can be used that way. It's an object that's made. Wild chimpanzees use sticks to dig insects out of their nests, but most sticks lying around won't do the job, they might be too thick, for example. So the sticks have to be sharpened so they'll fit into the hole in an ant hill or the insect nest. The chimp pulls off the leaves and chews the stick and trims it down that way until it's the right size. The chimp doesn't just find the stick. You could say it makes it in a way. But the broad definition says an object doesn't have to be modified to be considered a tool. The broad definition says a tool is any object that's used to perform a specific task. For example, an elephant will sometimes use a stick to scratch its back. It just picks up a stick from the ground and scratches its back with it. It doesn't modify the stick, it uses it just as it's found. And it's a tool under the broad definition, but under the narrow definition it's not because, well, the elephant doesn't change it in any way.
Using points and examples from the talk, describe the two different definitions of tools given by the professor.
In the lecture, the professor discusses two competing definitions of tools that can be used both by animals and humans. The first is the narrow definition. According to it, a tool is an object that has been intentionally modified or shaped to perform a task. She gives the example of wild chimpanzees who use sticks to get insects out of their nests. To do this, however, the chimps have to modify the sticks. They remove the leaves and chew the sticks so that they have the right size to fit into the insect nests. In this way, the chimpanzees adapt the object to their needs, which fits the narrow definition of a tool. The broad definition, on the other hand, is that a tool is any object that is used for a specific task without the need for modification. An example given in the lecture is that of elephants using sticks to scratch their backs. The elephants simply pick up a stick from the ground and use it without making any changes to it. So under the broad definition, even though it's not modified in any way, it's still a tool. This is the second most difficult question on the TOEFL speaking test. The main challenge here is to understand the information well and not get overwhelmed by the number of details. I know the first time you hear a lecture like this, you think, oh my god, how am I supposed to write all this down? Well, don't try to write down too much. What you should do instead is write down words that will guide you through your answer. You should also organize your notes clearly. For example, tools, used by animals, humans, two definitions, one, narrow definition, this is the first definition. Then we explain it, intentionally modified, shaped, animal, human, perform specific task, wild chimpanzees, use sticks, dig insects, nests, modify sticks, remove leaves, chew, right size. Having these notes would help you answer the question without getting lost. But the most important thing is to understand the main idea. That way, even if you don't remember all the details, you'll still be able to summarize the lecture well. This is all the information you need to tackle the speaking section of the TOEFL test. Congratulations! Now it's time to practice. Take as many tests as you can and try to apply all the strategies, tips and tricks you've just learned. If you're currently preparing for the test and want to check how ready you are, click on the link below to get your writing and speaking scored. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks. And remember, scoring 100+ on the TOEFL isn't rocket science. It's the little things you do that make all the difference. As always, I wish you all a stellar TOEFL score. Until next time, bye-bye.